The silence felt wrong. Not quiet. Wrong. 43 species filled the galactic assembly hall, and yet the air hung heavy, compressed, expectant, like a system moments before a star detonates. No whispers. No shifting armor plates. No bioluminescent murmurs from the aquatic delegates suspended in their tanks. Even the translation drones hovered without hum. At the center of the chamber stood one human. Ambassador Daniel Hayes. He didn't wear armor. He didn't carry a visible weapon. His suit was charcoal gray. Unremarkable. Earth-made fabric. The kind of outfit someone would wear to a business meeting, not the end of a 6-year interstellar war. Behind him rotated a holographic projection of Earth. Blue. Calm. Fragile-looking. That was intentional. Across from him stood High Consul Varex of the Varelian Dominion, tall, silver-skinned, eyes like polished mercury. Every movement precise. Calculated. The Dominion had nearly broken 3 sectors during the war. Entire civilizations had burned under defensive actions. And today, they were signing peace. The treaty hovered between them in shimmering script. Clauses scrolled in layered galactic languages. Non-aggression pact. Border recognition. Resource arbitration corridors. Military withdrawal protocols. A historic document. Daniel inhaled slowly. His pulse did not spike. His eyes did not flicker toward the balconies. But somewhere behind his calm exterior, a clock ticked. The consul extended a long, metallic hand. Let it be recorded, Varex intoned smoothly, that the Dominion seeks stability. Prosperity. The cessation of hostility. The chamber recorded every syllable. Daniel met the alien's gaze. Humanity agrees. Their hands met. Biometric scanners activated in a ring of pale blue light. DNA confirmation. Neural imprint authentication. Quantum identity seal. The treaty flared brighter. Then locked. Signed. For half a second. Nothing happened. Then the chamber exhaled. Some species clapped softly. Others flashed color patterns of approval. Relief pulsed through the room like a wave. The war was over. Daniel allowed himself one controlled breath. Just one. The shot came from above. Not loud. Not dramatic. A tight, suppressed discharge, almost polite. Daniel's body jerked forward. There was a wet sound as something struck through fabric and bone. For one horrifying heartbeat, nobody understood what they had heard. Then blood struck the polished stone floor. Red. Bright. Impossible. Gasps rippled outward. Security drones surged from hidden alcoves. Delegates recoiled. The aquatic tanks pulsed violently. From the upper balcony, a cloaked figure shimmered into visibility. Varelian military armor. Official insignia. Sniper configuration. The assassin did not run. He adjusted for a second shot. High Consul Varex turned slowly. Stand down, he began. The sniper fired again. But nothing happened. The rifle clicked. Disabled. Every weapon system inside the assembly hall powered down simultaneously. Not jammed. Not damaged. Overridden. The assassin looked at his rifle in confusion. On the floor, Daniel Hayes lay motionless. A spreading stain beneath him. The treaty hologram flickered uncertainly. Delegates shouted in overlapping frequencies. The consul's voice sharpened. This was unauthorized. Daniel coughed. Softly. Blood did not pool further. It evaporated. The red stain shimmered, then dissolved into faint mist. Daniel's fingers twitched. Slowly. Deliberately. He rolled onto his side. The chamber fell silent again. Because Daniel Hayes was smiling. He pushed himself upright. The hole in his suit sealed itself in a ripple of silver nanofabric. The wound beneath it knitted seamlessly, skin reweaving as if time had been politely reversed. The sniper stepped back. That's impossible, someone whispered. Daniel stood fully. Calm. Composed. He looked down at the floor where the blood had been. Timing, he murmured thoughtfully, was slightly earlier than predicted. The High Consul stared. Predicted. Behind Daniel, the holographic Earth flickered. The blue oceans vanished. The image zoomed outward, past Luna, past Mars, past the orbital defense platforms humanity had publicly declared. Then further. Far beyond normal sensor range. The projection expanded to reveal something that had never been on Dominion scans. Hundreds of human warships. Dark. Silent. Cloaked. Positioned beyond detection envelopes. The chamber lights dimmed as the station trembled faintly. Outside the viewport, space bent. A massive human dreadnought eased into visibility, its hull absorbing starlight rather than reflecting it. No weapons fired. No alarms blared. But across Dominion-controlled space, something far worse occurred. Weapons grids went dark. Fleet command channels locked out. Tactical AIS froze mid-calculation. Not destroyed. Disconnected. High Consul Varex's voice cracked. You came unarmed. Daniel adjusted his cufflinks. No, he replied gently. We came optimistic. The assassin tried to move. Gravity increased around him abruptly, not crushing, just enough to pin him to the floor. Daniel stepped forward, addressing the entire chamber. We calculated a 72% probability of treaty violation within 60 seconds of biometric confirmation. The words landed like stones. So we prepared. The Earth projection shifted again, displaying predictive models, contingency matrices, Dominion aggression simulations. Every scenario branching toward this exact moment. Daniel's eyes settled on Varex. The treaty still stands, he said calmly. But now we know who signed it honestly. Silence. Not wrong this time. Terrified. The human fleets did not advance. They did not fire. They simply waited. In control. And for the first time since the war began, the Dominion realized they had not just failed to kill a man. They had triggered something far more dangerous. Human restraint. No one in the chamber moved. Not because they were frozen. Because they were calculating. Every species present understood one thing at the same time. The human fleets hadn't appeared in panic. They had appeared on schedule. Ambassador Daniel Hayes stood at the center of the assembly hall as if nothing extraordinary had happened. The sealed tear in his suit was barely visible now, a faint silver seam where death had attempted to enter. Above, the Varelian sniper remained pinned by localized gravity control, suspended mid-struggle. High Consul Varex's voice returned, thinner now. You orchestrated this. Daniel tilted his head slightly. No. His eyes moved toward the hovering recording drones. You did. A murmur rippled through the chamber. The holographic projection behind him shifted again, no longer showing fleets, but data. Timelines. Behavioral pattern analysis. Probability curves. Human military predictive modeling. During the last 6 years, Daniel said calmly, the Dominion violated ceasefire terms 17 times. You denied 9. Reclassified 6. Blamed 2 on rogue actors. Varex said nothing. We calculated the probability of assassination during treaty signing at 72%. Gasps. That's absurd, one council delegate whispered. Daniel's expression didn't change. What's absurd, he replied evenly, is attending peace negotiations without accounting for precedent. The chamber lighting stabilized as Dominion command channels attempted to reconnect. They failed. Across 12 systems, Dominion fleets were discovering something deeply unsettling. Their ships were intact. Their weapons were intact. Their crews were alive. But nothing responded. No targeting systems. No long-range communications. No jump drives. Human code had wrapped around Dominion infrastructure like invisible hands. Not destructive. Restrictive. Daniel walked slowly toward the center of the chamber, every step deliberate. We did not deploy fleets to attack, he continued. We deployed verification. The projection zoomed outward again, revealing Dominion warships frozen in precise orbital formations, held in spatial anchor fields. Not damaged. Paused. Your fleets remain exactly where they were, Daniel explained. Suspended. Powered. Stable. They will regain control in 72 hours. Varex's eyes sharpened. You expect us to believe this is restraint? Daniel looked directly at him. If it were not restraint, he said softly, you would not be asking that question. The words hit harder than any weapon discharge. Because they were true. The human dreadnought outside the viewport did not charge weapons. It simply existed. Its presence distorted starlight in a way that felt patient. A council delegate from the Phelan Cooperative raised a trembling limb. You anticipated betrayal, she said. Then why sign at all? Daniel's gaze softened slightly. Because peace requires proof. The room went still again. We needed to know whether the Dominion sought stability or opportunity. He gestured subtly toward the pinned sniper. Now we do. Varek straightened, attempting to regain authority. This act of aggression is containment, Daniel interrupted calmly. He tapped a control on his wrist. Instantly, Dominion military transmission logs appeared in the center of the chamber. Encrypted channels. Authorization codes. A chain of command leading directly upward. The sniper had not been rogue. The order originated from Dominion strategic oversight. Silence deepened. You authorized this, a delegate demanded. Varex's metallic composure fractured for the first time. This was a precautionary measure. Daniel nodded once. Exactly. The chamber absorbed that. Human fleets had not arrived as an invasion force. They had arrived as an answer to a prediction. Across the galaxy, neutral observers were already receiving full, unedited recordings of the assassination attempt. Humanity had released everything. No manipulation. No propaganda. Just fact. The psychological impact spread faster than any fleet could travel. Dominion allies hesitated. Trade partners paused negotiations. Military observers recalculated threat assessments. Daniel turned slowly, addressing all 43 species. Humanity entered these negotiations in good faith, he said. We did not conceal weapons. We did not hide fleets within your territories. The projection displayed the positioning again, far beyond sovereign space. Legal. Precise. We positioned assets beyond sensor thresholds. Within unclaimed regions. We violated no border. He let that settle. We simply refused to be naive. Outside, the human dreadnought rotated slowly, aligning its broadside, not toward the planet below, but away from it. A subtle gesture. Non-threatening. Controlled. Varek spoke again, but this time the force was gone. What do you want? Daniel's answer came immediately. The treaty. Confusion flickered across alien faces. It is still valid, Daniel continued. Biometric seal confirmed. Recorded. Public. He paused. The Dominion may either honor it, or demonstrate again why this precaution was necessary. The gravity field released slightly around the sniper, enough to let him breathe, not enough to escape. Daniel looked at him briefly. No executions, he said. Gasps again. Varek stared. You would spare him? Daniel's gaze was steady. We are not at war, he said. The simplicity of it struck harder than anger would have. You shot a diplomat, Daniel added quietly. And we still offer peace. Across Dominion space, officers were beginning to understand the scale of what had happened. Humanity had infiltrated systems without firing a single weapon. Not to conquer. To ensure. Daniel faced the chamber once more. The trap, he said calmly, was never for war. The projection behind him displayed one final statistic. If humanity had chosen retaliation within the first 5 seconds after the shot, Dominion casualty projections exceeded 70% fleet loss. It had been calculated. It had been possible. It had not been chosen. The chamber understood. Human fleets did not win battles. They decided whether battles happened at all. Daniel folded his hands behind his back. We will wait, he said. And for the first time since the war began, the Dominion realized the most dangerous thing about humanity was not their weapons. It was their patience. The galaxy did not react with outrage. It reacted with silence. The recording spread in less than 4 minutes. 43 species had witnessed it live. Billions more watched the unedited transmission within the hour. The signing. The handshake. The shot. The smile. And the fleets. No music. No human narration. No spin. Just raw footage from assembly drones. In Dominion space, that silence became something far more dangerous. Doubt. High Consul Varex stood alone in a private command chamber deep within the assembly station. The metallic composure that defined his species had begun to fracture. Dominion strategic command channels flooded his console. Fleet Admiral Kethral appeared in a stuttering hologram. High Consul, weapons remain offline. Targeting airs are isolated. We cannot override the intrusion. Attempt physical resets, Varex ordered. We have. Manual systems are intact. But command routing is blocked at the quantum level. Not destroyed. Not burned. Just denied. Another transmission overrode the feed. Civilian networks. Dominion citizens were replaying the footage. Frame by frame. The sniper's insignia. The authorization watermark embedded in the shot's targeting matrix. It traced back. Not to a rogue captain. Not to a malfunction. To strategic oversight. To the Council. To Varex. His aide's voice cut in quietly. Public confidence metrics have dropped 37% in the last 10 minutes. Varex muted the feed. For 6 years, the Dominion had controlled the narrative of the war. Humanity was volatile. Unpredictable. Dangerous. Now the galaxy had seen something else. A human diplomat shot in the back. And still offering peace. Back inside the assembly hall, Ambassador Daniel Hayes had not moved. He stood calmly at the center of the chamber while delegates whispered in overlapping frequencies. The Varelian sniper remained restrained but alive. No execution. No spectacle. Just containment. A Thalen delegate activated her platform. Ambassador Hayes, she said carefully, is humanity mobilizing for retaliation? Daniel's expression remained neutral. No. The word landed heavier than a declaration of war. Dominion fleets will regain control in 72 hours. No systems have been damaged. No lives taken. He let that settle. We will not escalate. Across the chamber, a representative from the Oryx collective leaned forward. You were shot. Yes. And you respond with patience. Daniel allowed the faintest hint of a smile. We respond with evidence. The main projection shifted again. Now it showed galactic reactions. Trade consortium statements suspending Dominion contracts. Neutral systems announcing temporary sanctions. Military observers issuing advisory notices. Do not engage human assets. Re-evaluate Dominion alliance stability. The psychological impact was spreading faster than any fleet could. Dominion strength had always relied on certainty. On the perception of control. And in less than an hour, that perception had shattered. Inside Dominion space, commanders began to argue. Fleet Admiral Kethral convened an emergency military council. They infiltrated 12 systems simultaneously, one officer hissed. Without detection. They did not infiltrate, another corrected quietly. They positioned. The distinction mattered. They predicted us, Kethral muttered. Silence followed. A junior strategist finally spoke. If they predicted us, what else have they predicted? The room went colder. Because if humanity had prepared for betrayal during peace talks, what had they prepared for during war? Back in the assembly, Varex returned to the chamber floor. His movements were slower now. Measured differently. He faced Daniel again. You have destabilized my government. Daniel met his gaze. You destabilized it when you ordered the shot. The words were calm. Unaccusing. Factual. You could have destroyed us, Varex said quietly. Yes. The simplicity was suffocating. But you did not. No. Varex studied him carefully. Why? Daniel's eyes flicked briefly toward the rotating projection of Earth. Because victory isn't measured by how thoroughly you can break an enemy, he said. It's measured by whether you need to. The chamber absorbed that. Outside the viewport, the human dreadnought adjusted its position slightly, drifting farther from Dominion territory. A visible de-escalation. Intentional. Human fleets across contested sectors mirrored the movement. Pulling back. Not advancing. Every gesture communicated the same message. Control. Choice. Restraint. Dominion civilian networks began to shift tone. Protests formed on core worlds. Why risk peace? Why provoke humanity? Who authorized the shot? Confidence metrics continued to fall. Allied species issued formal inquiries. Some quietly repositioned their own fleets, not against humanity, but away from the Dominion. For the first time in decades, Dominion citizens were asking whether their leadership had miscalculated. Not militarily. Morally. Daniel turned back to the assembly. Peace requires trust, he said. We provided proof that we would honor the treaty even after provocation. He gestured toward Varex. The Dominion must now decide whether it will do the same. The sniper above finally stopped struggling. The weight of the moment settled across the chamber. No lasers. No explosions. Just consequence. The most devastating weapon humanity had deployed that day was not technological. It was transparency. The galaxy had seen who fired first. And who chose not to fire back. As the session recessed, Varex remained standing in the center of the chamber. For the first time since the war began. The Dominion did not look powerful. It looked uncertain. And uncertainty spreads faster than fear. Across the galaxy, military academies updated simulations overnight. New doctrine entries began circulating. Do not assume human diplomacy equals vulnerability. Do not provoke during negotiation. If humans prepare for war, assume they prepared more for peace. Daniel Hayes exited the chamber without escort. No applause. No celebration. Just quiet footsteps on polished stone. Behind him, an empire was beginning to fracture. Not from attack, but from exposure. And the galaxy was learning something far more unsettling than human strength. It was learning about human restraint. The Dominion did not sleep that cycle. Across 12 core systems, lights burned in government towers that had not seen darkness in decades. Emergency councils convened. Admirals argued. Civil confidence metrics continued their steady descent. But humanity did nothing. That was the most terrifying part. No fleets advanced. No ultimatums were broadcast. No retaliatory strike came screaming across hyperspace. The human dreadnought outside the assembly station drifted even farther from Dominion territory. A visible step back. A gesture. And gestures, in galactic politics, were louder than weapons. High Consul Varex returned to the assembly chamber alone. Not flanked by guards. Not surrounded by advisors. Alone. Ambassador Daniel Hayes stood at the center platform once more, hands folded behind his back. The Varelian sniper had been transferred to neutral custody, alive. That fact had spread almost as quickly as the assassination footage. You spared him, Varex said quietly. Yes. He attempted to kill you. Daniel's expression did not change. He followed orders. The consul's metallic eyes sharpened. You believe that absolves him? No, Daniel replied evenly. It clarifies responsibility. Silence settled again, but this time it wasn't fear. It was weight. Varex stepped closer. You have destabilized my government. My military command structure is fractured. Allied trade networks are suspended. Daniel nodded once. You destabilized them when you chose deception over peace. The consul's posture shifted, not defensive, not aggressive. Something else. Resigned calculation. What do you want? Varex asked again. Daniel tapped a control on his wrist. The treaty hologram reappeared between them, still active. Still legally binding. We want this, Daniel said. The consul stared at the glowing document. You expect us to proceed as though nothing happened? No, Daniel said calmly. I expect you to proceed knowing everything happened. The chamber lighting adjusted subtly as neutral observers reactivated recording systems. Daniel raised his voice slightly, not shouting, simply ensuring clarity. Humanity offers the Dominion a choice. The projection shifted again. Two paths appeared. Option 1, honor the treaty. Public acknowledgement of the assassination order chain. Full disclosure of strategic oversight authorization. Submission to neutral multispecies arbitration. Continued peace under monitored compliance. Option 2, reject accountability. Immediate, permanent isolation of Dominion weapons grids. Indefinite disabling of offensive fleet systems. Economic quarantine enforced by treaty partners. Humanity withdraws permanently from diplomatic engagement. No threats. No invasion plans. Just consequence. Varex's voice dropped to nearly a whisper. You would cripple our military. Daniel met his gaze. We already could have. The words weren't cruel. They were factual. Outside the viewport, the human dreadnought rotated slowly again, presenting its broadside toward empty space. Non-threatening. Almost casual. But everyone in the chamber understood the message. Human fleets had calculated Dominion casualty projections within 5 seconds of the shot. They had chosen restraint. That restraint had been a decision, not a limitation. Varex studied the projection carefully. You do not demand surrender. No. You do not demand reparations. No. You demand transparency. Yes. The simplicity unsettled him more than aggression would have. Dominion power had always relied on perception, strength, inevitability, control. Humanity had attacked none of those directly. They had attacked credibility. And credibility, once fractured, spreads instability like a crack through glass. Dominion Strategic Command transmitted new updates. Public unrest was climbing. Mid-tier governors were requesting emergency sessions. 2 border fleets had signaled refusal to re-engage human forces under current leadership. Internal fractures were widening. Varex understood something cold and unavoidable. Humanity did not need to destroy the Dominion. They simply needed to wait. Daniel stepped slightly closer. Peace was never the weakness, he said quietly. Deception was. Varex's metallic composure thinned further. You humiliated us. Daniel shook his head. No. You revealed yourselves. The distinction was devastating. A delegate from the Phelan Cooperative activated her platform again. If the Dominion complies, she asked carefully, will humanity withdraw fleet presence? Daniel answered immediately. Yes. And the 72-hour systems lock will expire on schedule. No hidden clauses. No shifting conditions. Just measured control. Varex looked toward the projection of Earth behind Daniel. Blue. Calm. Fragile looking. You prepared for betrayal, Varex said. Yes. And yet you still came. Daniel's voice softened slightly. Because someone has to mean it. The chamber absorbed that. For 6 years, the war had been defined by escalation. Retaliation. Counterstrike. Dominion doctrine assumed strength required dominance. Human doctrine had just demonstrated something different. Strength could mean control over your response. Varex straightened. Slowly. He turned toward the recording drones. The Dominion, he said carefully, will submit the strategic oversight chain to neutral arbitration. Gasps rippled outward. He continued. We will honor the treaty. The words cost him. Everyone could see it. Daniel inclined his head once. Then the offer still stands. Outside, human fleets began to drift farther outward again, measurable, visible de-escalation. Dominion citizens watching across their network saw it. Human ships retreating. Not advancing. Peace was not a trap. It had been a test. And the Dominion had barely survived failing it. As the session concluded, Varex lingered. You could have ended us, he said quietly. Daniel looked back one final time. We could have, he agreed. Then he added softly. But then you would have learned nothing. Varex stood alone in the chamber after the human departed. For the first time in Dominion history, power did not feel like control. It felt like accountability. And across the galaxy, one truth solidified. Humans did not conquer through fear. They conquered through certainty. 72 hours later, Dominion weapons systems came back online. Exactly on schedule. No hidden backdoors. No delayed sabotage. No final humiliation. Fleet command channels reconnected. Targeting systems rebooted. Jump drives reinitialized. Everything worked. That frightened them more than if something had exploded. Because it meant humanity had never needed to break anything. They had simply held it. And then let go. Across Dominion core worlds, citizens watched as official announcements streamed across public networks. High Consul Varex stood before the central broadcast array. Behind him floated the treaty, active. Unbroken. The Dominion acknowledges, he began, voice steady but measured differently now, that the assassination attempt during diplomatic proceedings was authorized through strategic oversight. No denial. No reframing. We submit the full chain of command to neutral arbitration. Markets reacted instantly. Trade suspensions paused. Military observers shifted threat classifications downward. Not because the Dominion had regained strength, but because it had chosen accountability. In the Galactic Assembly, the atmosphere felt transformed. Not lighter. Clearer. Ambassador Daniel Hayes stood once more at the central platform. No fleets loomed beyond the viewport now. The human dreadnought had withdrawn beyond standard sensor range hours earlier. Visible de-escalation had been completed before Dominion systems even came back online. The message was precise. Humanity did not need proximity to maintain leverage. The Thalen delegate addressed Daniel directly. You will not pursue additional sanctions. No. You will not demand concessions. No. You will not deploy observers within Dominion command. Daniel folded his hands behind his back. We expect the treaty to function as written. The simplicity was almost disorienting. A council representative from the Oryx collective leaned forward. You were shot, he said again, as if the fact still required processing. Yes. And you leave without vengeance. Daniel's eyes shifted briefly toward the projection of Earth. Vengeance is expensive, he said quietly. Peace compounds. That line would circulate across academies within hours. Dominion strategic oversight members were quietly removed from authority. Arbitration panels convened. Military doctrine committees across the galaxy began emergency revisions. New entries were added to diplomatic protocols. If negotiating with humanity, assume predictive modeling is active. Assume contingency forces are positioned. Do not test biometric treaty seals. Do not mistake visible restraint for incapability. One military analyst from a neutral system summarized it bluntly. Human fleets do not win wars. They predecide them. Daniel prepared to depart the assembly station without ceremony. No victory speech. No parade. The sniper who had fired the shot remained alive under neutral custody, a living reminder of consequence rather than a martyr for escalation. High Consul Varex met Daniel privately at the docking corridor. You have altered Dominion political structure, Varex said. No, Daniel replied calmly. You did. Varex studied him carefully. There will be those who resent this. Daniel nodded. Resentment fades. Stability remains. The consul hesitated before speaking again. When you calculated the probability of betrayal, did you calculate this outcome? Daniel paused. Yes. Varex's metallic gaze sharpened. And if we had chosen war? Daniel met his eyes without hostility. Then you would have lost faster. No arrogance. Just fact. Varex inclined his head, not quite a bow, but something close. Then perhaps this is preferable. Daniel allowed the faintest smile. That was always the goal. As Daniel's shuttle detached from the station, no Dominion vessels followed. No escort. No threat. Just distance. Human fleets remained beyond sovereign boundaries, holding position in unclaimed space, exactly as before. The war had not ended in a climactic battle. It had ended in a moment of choice. And the galaxy would study that moment for generations. Back on Earth, Daniel delivered his report. Closed chamber. Minimal audience. No applause. Assessment, a senior official asked. Daniel responded simply. Treaty viable. Dominion compliance probable. Confidence restored. And the assassination attempt? Within projections. There were no cheers. Only nods. Preparation had worked. Not because it crushed an enemy. Because it prevented one. Weeks later, the Galactic Council ratified a new advisory classification. Humans, strategic tier species. Not for firepower. Not for fleet size. For something more unsettling. Predictive restraint. Doctrine across the galaxy shifted quietly. Military academies taught a new principle. Do not provoke humans during negotiation. Do not assume a single visible diplomat represents a single layer of defense. Do not mistake calm for vulnerability. In the assembly archives, the footage remained permanently accessible. The handshake. The shot. The smile. The fleets. It became required viewing for every newly appointed envoy. A reminder. Peace was not naivete. Peace was confidence backed by preparation. Daniel stood once more on a balcony overlooking Earth's oceans. Blue. Calm. Fragile-looking. The illusion remained useful. He adjusted his cuff, the same cuff that had sealed itself 72 hours earlier. A small scar remained beneath the fabric. Intentional. A reminder. The galaxy had expected retaliation. Instead, it received certainty. And certainty proved far more destabilizing than fear ever could. The war ended not with annihilation, not with surrender, but with accountability. And the galaxy learned something that day. Humans sign treaties in good faith. But they prepare for bad faith better than anyone.